Okay guys, today I've got a video about my weapon system, which is the Mp5. I hesitate to just call it a gun review because it's actually, as you can see, a whole system that I've got going. And it's kind of took a couple months to kind of get this all together, but I'm finally at the point where I can say I've got everything set. Just to start off, this is based on the Cyma Mp5. It's a model number CM041. They're hard to find in the United States. Unfortunately, since UMREX started doing H&K licensing, a lot of US companies have stopped importing them. You can still find them used or overseas and get them in, but they're harder and harder to find. It's also the Echo1 Master Race, or whatever they called it, Master Series, Master Edition, whatever they called their, however they marketed their Mp5 series. If you can find those, that's the same thing. G&G also does a similar style, but G&G parts aren't perfectly interchangeable with the Cyma series, so that's just something to keep in mind. So basically, I'll start with the uppers. This top upper was from a 6mm Pro Shop Swordfish, which is built on the Cyma body, and I basically just took that whole Swordfish kit off and put on a front sight from a G&G gun and put that on there to make it kind of a classic or standard Mp5. I've got a rail mount if I ever want to put an optic on anything. Both of these have different hop-up setups. This one has just, they're both standard barrels, but that one has a, what's it called, Reaps bucking, and then the top one is a modify flat hop bucking. As for lowers, I've got an electric lower. It's mostly stock Cyma. It's got some compression mods. It also has KWA gears and a really high torque motor. And it's rear wired to Dean's, so I basically can only use it with the full stock. This is my HPA lower. This is a original SMP. I modified the gearbox shell. I cut a section out so that I can store the mini LiPo battery right in the gearbox shell, which makes it much easier for changing things out. I had it wired in the grip, but now it was a little kind of stuffed too tight, and then I had to take the screws out every time I wanted to change the battery. So I wired up there. The FCU is in the grip, but the battery is pretty easily changeable from the gearbox shell. As for stocks, it's just a standard full stock and a collapsible stock. Like I said, the full stock is used for the electric one, but I can also put it on for HPA if I want to run a full stock. As for barrel attachments, I've got a foam-filled suppressor, which is great for the HPA gun. It quiets it down a heck of a lot. I would argue it's probably the quietest gun you'll ever fire. And then a tracer unit for shooting glow-in-the-dark BBs. As for handguards and things like that, I've got this rail handguard. This came from the Swordfish. Like I said, it's just a replica cat grip, and then this is a Night Evolution's Surefire clone with a pressure pad. This is a real steel Mp5 handguard. It was manufactured in like 1974. It's a slim grip. It looks really unique. Not a lot of airsofters have Mp5s with that grip on it, so it's just kind of a cool little piece, and it makes the Mp5 feel really compact and slim. And then the top is just a standard G&G pressure pad, Surefire style foregrip. So that's pretty much everything for my Mp5 series. I've got like 20 mags for this thing, so I'm never out of mags, and it's kind of nice to have all these different ways I could set it up if I ever want to do it. The only thing I've got left is to find a Mp5 Sd Front End, which would be pretty cool, but I've already got the suppressor, so it's not an immediate concern of mine. And I'm trying to find an SEF lower, the old school lower for this series, but I don't think they make them, and I don't think the ICS version will fit. So that's just some little things, but pretty much I'm set right now. Like I said, if you got any questions, just leave them in the comments or send me a message. But they're getting harder and harder to find, so if you really want one, you got to keep your eye out on eBay. Or local places, find someone at your local field who's selling one. Or import it if you really want one. Alright guys, just as some closing thoughts, this is my parts bin of old Mp5 stuff. If you've seen some of my older videos, you've seen my other Mp5. That was basically a Tokyo Marui base. So if you remember, a couple of my videos had this SD front end kit, and basically the problem with this with this design, or the Marui design, is that the receiver was a clamshell. So basically, you got two halves and you put them together like that. The issue with this design, and why I really just totally did away with it and started over, was really the hop-up. Because what happens is you take your gearbox and you sit it in here. If I've got one shell laying around. Your gearbox sits in here, and then your hop-up sits in here. So when you put it together, you got to put the hop-up together with that, and then screw the hop-up into this half of the clamshell, and then you close it up and you're good to go. The issue with this is that whenever you need to change your hop-up, or you want to mess with a change of bucking or do anything like that, you've got to totally take off the front end. You've got to split the clamshell. You've got to take the lower and the motor out. You've got to pull this gearbox out and unscrew the hop-up just to get to it. And frankly, the hop-up was shit to begin with. So it was way too much work to get to this hop-up. Every time you had to take the gearbox out. And this is plastic, so the screws don't last very long. They strip. It's just a absolutely terrible system if you're going to be opening it up and working on it. So that's why, I said I need to find a front end, so you've seen other videos with this. You know I have an SD front end, but it's a different system, so I can't transfer it over. But just thought I'd put that little bit of info in there for you. I mean, these are fine guns if you want a JG or a Toki Marui, you just want to buy something and just run it, that's fine. But if you're like me and you're going to be changing hop-ups pretty often, tinkering, always trying to find something better, you got to go for a G&G or a Cyma system, because it's just so much easier to pop that pin, pull that lower out, and get to that hop-up real easily. I'll show you right now, just to give an example of how easy it is. You just got to pop this lower pin, if I can get it out. Pop that lower pin, your lower and all that slides out. There's your hop-up and barrel. It's that easy. I can literally do it with no tools. If that pin comes out, I can do it with no tools, rather than trying to split an entire clamshell open like that. I mean, it's just ridiculous. So that's kind of why I've switched to this system. Like I said before, you either need to stick with all G&G or all Cyma, because the parts, the tolerances and stuff, it's slightly different. Let's see if I can get this lined up. The tolerances are slightly different, and of course now it's not going to work. Everything is 10 times harder on camera. The tolerances are slightly different between the Cyma and the G&G. So if you're going to go with Cyma, go with Cyma. If you're going to go with G&G, stick with G&G. But don't try and mix them, because they're just, the manufacturing process or whatever, it's just slightly different and they're not going to mix. So that's pretty much all my Mp5 knowledge I've got for you. I love Mp5s. I don't know why, but it's just a little bit different, but still really iconic and popular. And so that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching, guys. I'm going to try and get some videos out soon. As soon as summer's over, I'll start playing Airsoft again. Get some gameplay for you guys. And that's pretty much it. Thanks, guys.